to owning nothing. I know I've talked about this previously in prior videos, but it's such a great, I guess, a tremendous thing, a huge thing that's happening, has been happening, has happened. I mean, you just think about, and this is a whole nother topic, but think about all the gold and silver and land and properties that the central banks have acquired over the last decades. And it really ramped up and accelerated after the whole 2020 debacle. And that's what they do. You print these paper things, you print these digit things, and then with the interest on them, or as you're spreading this out, you're getting something in return, then you're purchasing the gold, you're purchasing the silver, you're purchasing the land, you're purchasing the companies, that kind of stuff. Anyways, I will go on to my main topic of owning nothing. Think of 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we'll just say 2000. That's over 20 years ago, 22 years ago, 23 years ago. In 2000, this was just the early stages. Still the infancy, maybe just getting to your single years of the internet, and really as a whole society deal. And computers had exploded, and by this time, almost a lot of people, most people had a computer in their home, that kind of stuff. But people still own things. You were owning the software. If you needed a Windows program, you needed a game, you needed an Adobe program, whatever it was, you would go to the store usually. You didn't really order online so much in 2000. Go to the store, the physical store, and purchase what you're looking for. Then you had it. And you would install it, and your licensing and all that agreement, you know, that license number, and you would put it in. And that was yours. That was yours until you decided to upgrade. That was yours until your computer got too old or too slow for what you felt was good. I mean, a 20-year-old computer nowadays, you could fire it up with the same program on there and still use it. It's not even going to compare to nowadays software with the upgrades and nowadays computer operations and speed and that kind of stuff, and have all the bells and whistles. But you could still fire it up. You can still fire it up, and you can still use it as good as you used it back then. Why? Because you own it. You own those things. You don't own rights to the software itself, but you own that. You can still use it as it was when you purchased it. So I don't want to dive too deep into that, but I want to get people thinking about this stuff. 20 years ago, so you owned your software, you owned your computers, you owned your CDs or your cassette tapes or even your albums. You owned your property for the most part. I mean, you owned everything, like the music-wise, your movies, your videos, that kind of stuff. You owned it all. And taking videos, personal videos, excuse me, you would use a digital video camera, or you would use a 8mm camera, or you would use an older camera that recorded directly on a VHS tape. And you recorded that, that was yours, no one else saw it, unless you let them see it, unless you made copies, you shared it with them, that kind of stuff. Even in the digital aspect of digital video, you could put that on a computer, and then you could share that with people on a disk, on a drive, whatever you want to say, zip drive, jazz drive, that kind of stuff, that old technology. But it was yours. Nowadays, you don't own these things. I mean, unless you go out of your way and you make it a point, jump over the hurdles and that kind of stuff to own these things, it's so much easier not to own these things. I'll just do some examples here. Like your photos themselves, your images. You don't own those. I mean, all right, so every time you purchase, or every time you upload a photo or an image on Facebook or Google, or, I mean, your Twitter, your Instagram, that kind of stuff, Snapchat, then they are not fully yours anymore. They are yours that you're licensing, you're the licensee to Google or Facebook or whatever, and they are able to do whatever they want with them. They're able to share them, they're able to use them for whatever they want. It's all in their licensing agreement. It's all in the stuff everyone just clicks yes to be able to be active, or with their accounts, whatever, or get their account, create their account, that kind of stuff. So you've entered into this legal relationship with them. You're posting the stuff on their site or on their hard drives that you're using your social network, your social media, your Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And now that it's there, you've agreed that, well, now you still own it, but you're licensing it to Facebook. We'll use that. And now Facebook can choose to do whatever they want with it, share it however they want, give it a copy to someone however they want, that kind of stuff. That's all in their agreement. It's not just yours anymore. That's out the window of this solely being yours, because you agreed to this thing, this contract, this relationship that you entered into. So beyond just that, excuse me, think of vehicles. Back 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, people would go out and purchase a vehicle. They would purchase their vehicle, their car, their truck, whatever. And yeah, a lot of times they would be making payments on it, that kind of stuff. And that gets me to another thing. I'm going to go sidebar on this. People back then, and I even fell into this, you ran the thing of, well, I'm going to get this vehicle because how much of a payment can I afford? How much of a payment can I afford? That tells me what kind of car I can buy, what kind of truck I can buy. Because I can afford this $200 payment a month. I can afford this $300 payment a month. I can afford this $150 payment a month. I can afford this $700 payment a month. And that's what, that was what was sort of the norm. You weren't taught anything like this in the government education, indoctrination, camps. You weren't taught money, you weren't taught finance, you weren't taught anything, assets, liabilities, that kind of stuff. So that's the way you looked at it. And today, that's still being had as how people treat it for the most part. Not everyone, but most people treat it that way. How much can I afford for a payment? Well, now, barely anyone goes out and purchases a vehicle and gets a loan on it and is making payments to this vehicle that they own. No, they're just going to lease it. They just lease this vehicle because, you know what, maybe a year or 2 or 3 from now, before my lease is up or right when my lease is up, I'm going to want the latest and greatest thing. I want to upgrade my vehicle. I'm going to get this new car. I'm going to get this new truck. So I'm going to have this for a couple of years or a year or two until I get bored with it and then want to upgrade. So no one really owns anything anymore. They're just leasing it. They just, what can I afford, for a monthly bill? Because they don't equate, yeah, I've paid off this thing for 3 years or 5 years, however long my vehicle loan was for, and then I own it. Well, it doesn't matter because I might not want it back, by that time. I'm going to want the latest and greatest. I'm going to want the new bells and whistles. I want the shinier bumpers. I want the shinier paint job. I want the newer interior, that kind of stuff. So that doesn't even cross their mind. It's all about, I want what I want, and I want it now. And that's how everyone's living their life, by the seat of their pants. Because it's a struggle to save up for things. It's a struggle to grind and try to accumulate what is needed, the assets for survival. And any assets that you want to pass on to your legacy of wealth. Your heirs, or whatever you want to call it, your future generations. That's not in people's minds. That's not in people's thought. It's like, well, I'm going to be here for 70 years, and I'm going to, live as hard and fast, as fun as I can for these 70 years. And if I die broke, great. If I die in debt, even better, because I'm not paying that debt off. I had fun doing it, though. And that's their mentality. Until they get older, and usually now, maybe they're 50, maybe they're 40, maybe they're 30, maybe they're 70 or 60, and they're like, you know what, I wish I would have put some stuff away because I have nothing now. I have zero. I have nothing. But I want people to think of this. And while I'm on top of it, I don't mean to be doing these sidebars, but think of it this way. You look around. Right now, what do you own? What do you have? In a pinch, they shut down the internet. They don't accept cash anymore. In a pinch, what do you have that you're going to be able to barter with? What do you have that you're going to be able to scrape to get by? That's food, survival, that kind of stuff. Do you have anything anyone else wants? Do you have any skills? Do you have any tools? Do you have any silver or gold? Do you have anything else that someone may want? Do you have something that you can barter with somebody else for a larger ordeal to have them come help you, to work with something on you, work with something for you that you may need? You know, something at the house, something on the vehicle, whatever it is. Just assess it right now. Pretend that the internet shut down and no one accepts cash, whether you're holding cash or not. What are your options? You can't say, well, I got $10,000 in the bank, so I'll be fine. No, it's shut down. You can't get that stuff out of the bank. Right now, it might be a week, it might be a month, it might be a day, but you need access to it now because you don't have enough food. Your baby's crying, or your son or your daughter needs it for whatever reason. What do you have right now that, if needed, you can go to and say, okay, I got this covered for now. I'm not going to live my life off this, but it's a Band-Aid. It's something to get me by. It's a transitional period. I got this. Got this covered because of whatever. Because I know how to grow food, because I'm growing food in my garden. I know how to go out and hunt if I need to hunt, you know, to get something. Or I have these assets. Here I can barter with a neighbor. I can, you know, post some stuff up in the local whatever, coffee house or grocery store or hardware store. Post some notes up and say, hey, looking for XYZ, or I have that XYZ available. Looking to barter for whatever. Just, I'm not saying this clear. I don't have this written out, but just think about if internet's down and cash is no longer accepted, whether you have cash or not on you. You can't get to the banks. You can't pull out digits. You can't pull a currency. You can't pull money. That means your cards don't work. Your credit cards don't work. That kind of stuff. What are you going to do? What are your options? Do you have any? And if you don't, maybe you should think about that. Anyways, I'm going to continue on. Back to my main point. So they're leasing vehicles. They own nothing. And no ownership. Now, coming soon, I feel, there's going to be access to vehicles on demand. You know, sort of like the music on demand. You know, like Spotify, like Amazon, like you name it, Apple Music, whatever. No one buys these things. No one buys CDs, records, cassette tapes. No one buys them anymore, really. Not no one as an absolute, but barely anyone does. And they don't own them. Yeah, you paid for them, but they can shut them down. They can get rid of them. They can be wiped out. You don't own them. You don't have them. You can't just put this record on. You can't put the CD in and play it. Same with movies. Same with books. Books, not a lot of people are buying physical books. Same thing. And even with this digital stuff, with this whole censorship mentality going on, if they say, well, this book shouldn't be allowed, well, it's a simple click and boom, it's erased. It's gone. Same with this song, or this album, or this movie. A simple click, whether you paid for it or not, boom, it's gone. It's censored. You don't have access to it anymore because it's not yours. It's not yours. It's not on your hard drive. It is not yours. If you would have the DVDs or the VHS or the cassettes or the tapes or CDs, or you have the physical books, those are yours. That's something no one can take from you. That's something you can hold and, you know, read, do whatever you want with. That's yours. Yeah, it's simple. It's entertainment. It's, well, whatever. Some of the stuff is essential. The books, historical books, that kind of stuff, the books with good literature, those aren't just entertainment. Those are learning, you know, abilities. Those are learning systems. Those are things to learn from. But anyways, I'm going to continue on. So I'm losing my voice for some reason. But anyways, so people renting cameras nowadays. I mean, we're not talking cameras on an iPhone or your smartphone. We're talking cameras. They want to do a photo shoot or go on vacation. People are renting cameras. They're renting lenses, that kind of stuff, because they don't own them. People are renting ATVs, that's four-wheelers, renting snowmobiles, boats, bicycles even, like mountain bicycles, that kind of stuff, tents, camping supplies. All this stuff's being rented because nobody owns anything anymore. Even rent for parties. Yeah, it's tough to get if you need 50 chairs or 30 chairs and a bunch of lounge tables. Yeah, it's tough to get that stuff. You may have rented. But if you had some of it and your neighbors had some of it, you could just, have them, hey, can I borrow some things from you for this party I'm having? You need a few tables, a few chairs, like 20 chairs, whatever. You come together, you might all have it, and you're not renting the stuff anymore because people own things. And ownership is key. If and when it comes down to it, if ever the stuff's old, the stuff's, you've been around for 10 years, 20 years, you don't really use it except for on rare occasions like a party, graduation, whatever, anniversary, 50-year anniversary, whatever, that kind of stuff. Just talking this stuff. Your old ATV got sitting out there, your old boat sitting out there. You have it, you don't use it that much. It's losing some value over time because it's, that's what happens. But you have something. If you need it, you can use it for its use or you can sell it. Whether you get pennies on the dollar or not, you're getting pennies, you're getting something for it. If you're leasing and renting your whole life, you have nothing, you have zero. That's it. All right, I got to speed this up. So just think smart cities, think electric vehicles, think automated vehicles, that kind of stuff. All those things, you own nothing. You control nothing. That's what that means. Your example, your house, your smart house may stop working. Your landscape lighting, your landscape watering may stop working, may stop turning on and off when they're supposed to. Your security alarm may stop working. Your burglar deterrent for when you're not home may stop working. Anything like this. Just like your vehicle may stop working. So think of this. Although you own the hardware, you don't actually own the software in the device. You own the physical device. You own the computer. You own the smartphone. You own the vehicle, the new vehicle, but you don't own the software in it. Technically, somebody else owns that software. Without that software, your device is useless. Pretty much. It's like having a gun without ammunition. Now, the gun is pretty, a good paperweight. It's pretty much useless without ammunition. It's the same way with all these things. If they're leasing them, they're buying them, and they're buying them or getting them for free, quote unquote, because they paid for them through their tax dollars or inflation or their stupid stimulus packages they pass, where they get their free smartphones, they get their free this or that, and they consider it theirs, but the software on there you don't own. Once that software stops working, that thing gets pretty useless for the most part. So think of this. Although you, excuse me, so in a similar situation, General Motors and John Deere have said recently that they still own the software in the cars and other vehicles that you buy. They still own that software. You might own that tractor, you might own that car, you might own the vehicle, but they still own that software. That means you have no control. They shut it down, it stops working, needs to be serviced. They're in charge of where that gets serviced because they own that software. And I'm not saying it's detrimental right now, but saying it's going to be detrimental later and longer as time goes on. Later could be 6 months from now. So that's a very short later. So if these manufacturers have their way, you may buy things from them, but you'll never really own anything. So as long as they control the software. And that's what they're doing. Like in the Bill Clinton era, that whole deal, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act was passed and pushed through and then ensured that they always will own their software no matter what. Period. That's that. They control your devices. You don't. Whether you're controlling at the time, push comes to shove, they control those devices. Your automated cars, your cell phones, your mobile phones, your computers, that kind of stuff. You don't. Think about that. So here's another thought experiment. Google, 2018, we acquired a smart pacemaker company, or another company acquires a smart pacemaker company. All right. Then that same entity, Google or whatever it is, we'll use Google or Amazon. 2022 or 2023 comes out. Well, sorry, we don't support your pacemaker anymore because we purchased this in 2018, made some changes. There was some hiccups, some bumps, and we no longer support that pacemaker or the software that's in it. We've changed our minds, or we've revamped, or we've upgraded. So now we will have to shut down all old devices, all old pacemakers, or any other thing like that. Not saying it's something they said, not saying it's happened, but I'm saying it can happen, and it probably will. Anyways, if you like this, hit like, share, subscribe. I thank you for watching. As always, stay vigilant, protect yourself, protect your family, protect your health, and protect your wealth.